There's 6 famous childhood actors that have either gone crazy or just straight up disappeared from the public eye, and we're gonna talk about all of them, starting with the infamous story of Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay was one of the biggest stars to ever hit the screen until she completely fell apart in her 20s. As a child, Lohan was already a better actress than some adults, and by age 10, she was a certified star with her breakout role in The Parent Trap. Though she was famous from a very young age, Lohan kept rising as a young adult with roles in movies like Herbie Fully Loaded, Freaky Friday, and the cult classic Mean Girls, the latter being her most well-known performance to this day. Each movie that Lohan was in would immediately benefit from her star status, and it only seemed to be going up for her, but by the time that she was in her 20s, things started going bad. Like many child stars, Lohan wanted to move away from kids movies and really use her talent for more mature productions, but her first attempt to move out of the box around her resulted in a box office bomb, where Just My Luck only made $5 million even though they paid her $7 million to be in it. Though her ventures in adult roles were not working too well, Lohan was still a huge star and even branched out into music as well, releasing an album composed mostly of hip-hop and rock music. With all of these projects, Lohan claimed that she was struggling to keep up with everything, and her partying habits didn't really help either, which started conflicting with her work schedule. It was reported that she often showed up late to set and was also hungover during many of the morning shoots, which only became more public due to her being constantly followed by paparazzi until she would get home in the morning.
It's locked, Lindsay.
Lohan's late nights out became a common easy target for paparazzi, and although we've all been there, none of us have had the misfortune of being followed everywhere we go. But despite this though, she still kept with the routine. By the time she was just 21, Lohan was attending Alcoholics Anonymous to seek help for her drinking, but it didn't help as much as she needed. Later that year, Lohan went to rehab for her alcoholism, hoping that she would finally go sober, but this was the beginning of a long battle with addiction. Though she only really started to crack in her adult life, the damage that led to this could have been a result from her childhood. Being famous as a child is already difficult enough, but what makes it significantly harder is when your father is in jail. As a child, Lohan's dad committed a few white-collar crimes that got him locked up, not to mention that her parents frequently divorced and then got back together, leading to lack of real guidance for the child.
I love my parents, and I'm not going to say that it hasn't, certain situations I would have preferred to have been handled differently.
Though her childhood could have hurt her in the long run, a now adult Lindsay Lohan was dealing with the consequences of going unchecked for too long, and the last straw was when she had multiple DUIs from 2007 to 2013.
Are you okay?
To top it off, she was then caught with substances and driving under the influence less than 2 weeks after she checked out of rehab.
And that's what people don't realize here, Donald. We're talking about 4 charges. We're talking her second DUI, driving on a suspended license because of a previous DUI, mind you, felony drug possession, and felony transportation of a narcotic.
Failing drug tests and missing probationary hearings only made her experience worse, as she was struggling heavily with getting back on track. She has started to get more roles in the last few years and gaining attention while maintaining a healthy absence from the tabloids that she used to live in, but at this point in her career, it will never be what it once was. And though Lindsay may still actually have time for a comeback, the next child star may not have the same chance after the amount of change that she's gone through. Amanda Bynes was set to be one of the most successful child actors of all time, but controversy after controversy has left her life in ruins. Bynes became a huge star through being on Nickelodeon, winning multiple awards, and even being on a ton of shows and movies. She was set to have a huge career coming off her childhood, but in 2010, she suddenly retired at only 24. Amanda did already have a great career and didn't need to continue working, but after dropping everything one day out of the blue, it seemed like her mental state was changing. Bynes had always wanted to become a fashion designer, so after retiring from acting, the plan was to move to New York and start her career, but even as a famous former child actor, it was much harder than she thought. In 2012, she made headlines for the first time since retiring, but this time the news was about her getting arrested for a DUI. That year, Bynes was involved in 7 different illegal driving cases. Though the cases were eventually dismissed, she did end up on probation that ended with her getting arrested after getting caught with possession.
Bynes was arrested in New York City. Police said that she threw a bong out of her high-rise apartment, a charge she denied in court.
After spending the night in jail, she appeared at her court case wearing a platinum wig and the same clothes that she was arrested in. Though she was able to get off without a serious sentence once again, something was clearly wrong, shown in her tweets at the time. In 2013, her Twitter became focused heavily on Hitler and Nazis while also calling out multiple celebrities for being ugly, going after Zac Efron, Miley Cyrus, and even the Obama family. Things really escalated later that year when Bynes was sent to a psych ward after starting a fire in her neighbor's driveway, which resulted in her parents filing a conservationship over her as they no longer felt as though she could take care of herself.
This morning, former child star Amanda Bynes remains under psychiatric care after an incident earlier this week. That follows a few months of odd behavior, including arrests, strange tweets, and more.
Even with her parents attempting to take care of her, things were only getting worse for Bynes. By late 2014, she dropped a bombshell on Twitter claiming that her dad tried to sexually abuse her as a child, but with her mental state being up in question, it made it hard to know what was really happening. Bynes ended up confirming that same day that this did not happen, but rather she claimed that it was a microchip that her father had put in her brain that made her say these things. She was then placed under psychiatric watch once again and was soon diagnosed with bipolar disorder and manic depression. She ended up moving back in with her parents, and it seemed like she was getting a lot better after attending rehab and focusing on her mental health once again. She opened up later in the 2010s, expressing that she was disappointed and ashamed of what had happened, with her saying that she was trying to do better, and got sober for 4 years. But in early 2020, she made another appearance that had fans very concerned. She posted a selfie with a new face tattoo in the shape of a heart while also sharing her new engagement with a man named Paul that she met in rehab. Her new appearance left followers shocked as she's almost unrecognizable compared to what she used to look like. Though looks can be deceiving, and the most important thing was that Bynes was healthy and happy, only 3 weeks later she announced that her and her husband were no longer together in a series of Instagram stories that exposed him for weird behavior and drug use.
He vandalized his mom's home. He broke all of her pictures and put salmon under her bed. I forgot to mention, I found Paul's stash of cocaine he's been using for the past 6 months.
Bynes then filed to end the conservatorship that her parents had over her in 2022 as she believed that her condition had improved and she no longer needed her parents to do everything for her. Though Amanda may still have a long battle ahead, she can take comfort knowing that some child stars can simply get back to their normal life, like the next person on this list, Macaulay Culkin. Macaulay Culkin's sad story starts about as soon as his career does, as the actor was most famous for starring in Home Alone, but that was after the trouble had already began. Culkin was very poor growing up, and his father, Kit, saw potential with him and his 5 siblings in the world of acting. Besides wanting his kids to work, Macaulay's father had other issues as well, most notably being abusive towards his children. Culkin's dad would ensure that his kids were always hard at work, but for the young children, they had no say whatsoever in what roles they played in.
Did you have any say in whether or not you worked when you were young?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Like, it was, after a while, it became, like I said, a job, and it was, I never chose the projects. They were like my parents, like, essentially like chose them for me.
So they were
it was
like,
kind of
good news, Macaulay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They called me Macaulay.
You're gonna buy us a new house.
yeah, there you go.
Culkin's dad was incredibly controlling and refused to let him live a regular childhood. Even though Macaulay was the one that was bringing all of the money in, Kit made him sleep on the couch every night in order to maintain control. Macaulay claimed that his father's violent and controlling sides were due to his jealousy, since Macaulay had, quote, achieved everything he tried to get in his life by the time I was 10 years old. His father actually ended up losing custody of his children after their mother finally separated from him, leaving the young Culkin without a father figure. However, that was better than the abuse he was receiving. Culkin hit huge success with the Home Alone franchise, and though as a child he enjoyed the attention, things could get tough with him in public as fans would be so obsessive they would harass him endlessly to try to get pictures. Fresh off of the Home Alone success, Culkin got other roles to continue his career, but sadly, like many other childhood stars, he was not able to really recreate the same magic, and although he was well paid, his time in Hollywood was running out.
When you talk to child stars, when they're making the movies and they're making the money, that's the fun part. The problem begins after, when they're not making as much.
As Culkin grew into his teenage years, he didn't have the same experience as we did. Having no father figure and millions of dollars by age 13 allowed Culkin to make some drastic choices, most notably getting married at age 17 to his on and off again girlfriend at the time, Rachel Miner. After 2 years, Culkin was now an adult and alone, leaving him with time and money to make his own decisions, which weren't very good. Culkin would drink, smoke, and overall act out with his newfound freedom, and although this was all within his right and he could do whatever he wanted with his time, it would finally come to a head when he would get arrested for possession. Culkin talked about his arrest openly, saying that it was always exaggerated in the news since people have always been out to get him due to everything that's happened in his life. Things then seemed to look up for Culkin when he started dating Mila Kunis, but after they broke up after 7 years together, Culkin was left in his most vulnerable state. Going from one of the most recognizable faces in the world to becoming just a regular guy was not good enough for paparazzi and meant that he would still be followed around by people looking for any story they could get on him. Rumors about him being terminally ill and possibly addicted to crack would spread on every tabloid, but the thing that Culkin really craved was to be left alone. By the time he was single again, Culkin had lost his half-sister to a drug overdose and his full sister in a car accident, adding even more trauma to a person who already had a lot to deal with. He ended up moving to France for a couple of years, and in his own words, it was, quote, everything he ever needed, as no one cared who he was. But then something brought him back home, and it was actually good. In 2018, Culkin and Brenda Song began dating, and she helped him find the love and support that he needed. With newfound stability and support in his life, Culkin even made a few returns to acting, to a warm reception from fans and critics who had clearly missed him over all these years. Macaulay Culkin was able to turn around a story that many people didn't know was as sad as it was due to an abusive relationship with his father, much like our next misunderstood star, Shia LaBeouf. Much like Macaulay Culkin, LaBeouf was brought into the acting world by his father, but unfortunately the similarities don't end there. Shia's father was a Vietnam War veteran who suffered from PTSD, and although Shia now describes his father as loving and supportive, their relationship was not always that easy. The family grew up in poverty as their father struggled with alcoholism and drug addiction and was also abusive towards Shia during episodes of PTSD. One specific intense episode ended with Shia's father pulling a gun on his son during a war flashback, traumatizing him in the process. Even with the tough upbringing, Shia always had a knack for comedy, which would prove to be his family's saving grace. Shia's original comedic talent came from a need to perform in order to make money. Due to how poor his family actually was at the time, Shia would do his best to provide for the family, and from the age of just 10 years old was performing in stand-up shows. He was noticed pretty much right away and brought in for auditions by the Disney Channel, landing him a leading role in the series Even Stevens. From that point on, Shia would become more and more famous through different movie roles until getting his real big break with Transformers, but at the height of his fame, Shia would start to unravel. In 2014, he appeared on the red carpet wearing a bag over his head that said the words, "I am not famous anymore," hinting at the delicate relationship Shia always had with his stardom. From that year onward, Shia would start to make headlines constantly for his behavior and legal trouble. Shia then got arrested multiple times for disorderly conduct, and at the start, he played them off more as a joke.
You were arrested at the musical Cabaret.
Yeah.
Which seems like, first of all, a weird place for you to be in the first place.
Sure.
But how does one get arrested? Take us through it from the beginning. How does one get arrested at Cabaret?
The reality of his arrests were much more concerning, and every time it happened, the circumstances were worse. Shia became more and more disruptive in public and would often be found in trouble when he started drinking. In 2017, he was arrested again for disorderly conduct, but this time there was no talk show episode to water it down, just police footage of a man in need of help.
So you want to arrest white people who ask for cigarettes? I came up to you trying to be nice, you stupid. I came up to you asking for a cigarette, you dumb. Why would I ask for a cigarette if I was racist, you stupid?
This was also around the same time where the now infamous "Just Do It" meme came out.
Just do it!
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
By this point, the star had made a name for himself for weird appearances, and although this was meant to be a genuine motivational video, it just came off as ridiculous with everything else going on in his life. Shia ended up getting professional help and was diagnosed with PTSD as a result of his tough upbringing. Those steps were being taken to get better, and Shia was starting to come back to Hollywood with films such as Peanut Butter Falcon and Honey Boy. Once 2020 rolled around, things got worse for him once again. Shia was sued by his ex-girlfriend FKA Twigs for sexual battery and assault, and although the trial has not concluded, Shia has admitted to being abusive to himself and the people around him. This event seemed to be the wake-up call that Shia needed, as in 2022 he took a break from acting and once again sought out professional help. This could not have been done sooner, as it had gotten to a point where almost anything would set Shia off, as he was becoming more and more of a danger to himself and the people around him, exploding at people in public for simple mistakes such as forgetting his French fry order. By the end of 2022, he appeared on the Real Ones podcast with John Berthal to talk about how the bridges he burned have affected him and how he's trying to be better.
And they do something called Family Week. And every week on a Sunday, everybody who's involved in the program has their family show up on these Skype calls. Week 1, no one shows up. For me, no one. They got the calls. I know they got the calls, but no one showed up. My mother, my father, no one showed up.
Shia claimed that people in the group with him had been criminals and some even predators, yet still had support, only he was all alone. Someone finally did show up for Shia, even though he feels as though he didn't deserve it.
And I show up thinking, all right, my mom's gonna be on there. You know, my mom will be on. And Mia is on the screen. And, you know, like, you don't deserve that kind of shit. You know what I mean? You don't deserve that kind of shit. Like, I don't deserve that shit. You know, I done put her through years and years of fucking nonsense, bro. Just like
Shia LaBeouf is now a father and has spoken multiple times about how he regrets what he's done because of how it will affect his daughter, but he hopes that he can do his best to raise her right. His story serves as an example of when to know you need help and not go about your mental battles alone, as you never know when it may be too late to get help from the ones that you love. The next person on our list, though, may serve as the exact opposite, getting too much assistance when really all she needed was to be herself. Britney Spears was one of the most popular and talented young singers to come out of the early 2000s, but now she's known more for the infamous drama around her career. Spears had an incredible talent from a young age, and although she isn't a Disney kid in the traditional sense, she did make it on the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse by the time she was 12. She then went on to release the song Baby One More Time, which would become a massive hit, and with the newfound success, Spears would be incredibly busy building her career, but that could take a toll on her. Britney Spears was one of the first singers to really become her own brand, and although she was at the height of her fame that many would kill to attain, she was really looking for something else, and that was stability. Spears had a really unfortunate record when it came to finding the right person, and although she would fall in love quickly, it would prove to end up being a problem time and time again.
A breakup about what happened from Mexico to London.
Ew, I'm embarrassed. Can we stop?
Originally, her and Justin Timberlake seemed like a great match, but when they split ways, she may have been overeager to catch up on lost time, as she then got married to her next boyfriend for just 55 hours before divorcing him. And though she got out of that relationship quickly, she was then married again at age 22 and had 2 kids with another man, which only added more attention. She was finally a mother with a family of her own, but it became more obvious that it may not be the best fit right away. Reports started coming out about Spears driving with her baby on her lap and trying to balance the chaotic celebrity lifestyle with her 2 children, but the video of her almost dropping her son brings up another big problem in Britney's life: the paparazzi.
Is everything good, Britney?
Still, at the height of her popularity, she could not go anywhere without being swarmed by them. Every minute of her life was in every tabloid, and she was already going through a tough time with her second marriage ending in divorce in 2004. She was attempting to raise 2 boys while being a famous singer, so it was really only a matter of time before something big happened.
Yo, guys, please, guys, don't do this. Oh, fuck you! Fuck yourself!
Britney Spears shaving her head is now an infamous moment in many people's lives, as it turns out that Spears was also struggling with addiction. After finally having enough, Spears shaved her head and would start checking in and out of rehab, sometimes only staying for a day at a time. As the struggle with addiction got worse and became more and more public, she would even lose custody of her children. This marks the period where Spears' life was in complete freefall and would somehow result in her father gaining complete control over her life. See, because of all of the trauma that she was facing, Britney's entire estate was given to her father, who unfortunately may not have had the best intentions for his daughter. Because he controlled every financial and business-related decision in her life, she would not even be able to hire a lawyer to fight back on his decisions without him agreeing to it. More and more fans started recognizing the problem that she may not actually be free at all and even be a prisoner in her own home. Though the conservatorship may have helped Britney get her life back on track, after years of her seeming back and stable, she still did not have control over her own life. But people started to forget until news came out that she had been in a mental facility for months against her own will. The internet absolutely blew up, with people voicing support for Britney with videos, tweets, and mentions from her fans and celebs alike. Though on paper, the agreement seemed to be more about helping Britney professionally, in her testimonies, more news would come out that her father was able to control anything that he wanted, and Britney couldn't take it anymore, as she revealed in the audio of her trial.
Ma'am, my dad and anyone involved in this conservatorship and my management who played a huge role in punishing at me when I said, no, ma'am, they should be in jail.
Though it was a tough battle, finally Britney was given her life back, where she was able to break free from her father in 2022, giving her the chance to restore herself back to where she needs to be. Britney is finally able to do her own thing, and like many of the people on this list, will have a chance to get their lives back. But we can only wonder if they would have traded it all away for a chance to live normally.